Just 3 weeks plus to go for the first round of voting in Uttar Pradesh, and the game of defection versus defection or defector versus defector is peaking now. So first of all, Akhilesh Yadav's party scored a big one on the BJP by getting almost a cricket team size with extras away from it. Mostly these were people who had earlier defected from BSP to the BJP. BJP has tried to get even now with one strike, or what in the Hindi heartland would be called "Saw Sunar ki, Ek Lohar ki," because a goldsmith may use 100 strikes like this, but a blacksmith then puts one down like that. That is for our non-Hindi speaking audiences. Poor translation, but we try. Now, they've taken away Mulayam Singh Yadav's daughter-in-law, Aparna Yadav. Aparna Yadav has joined the BJP. Yogi Adityanath has also sort of shown her around as a prize catch for his party, which she is, because while there are issues and tensions within the family, as they are within all political dynasties, and I will take you through that in just a few minutes, the fact is that she had last contested in the assembly election on Samajwadi Party's ticket. She had contested from Lucknow, Kant, which is the constituency she still seems to be eyeing. Unlike other strongholds of Samajwadi Party, this is not really a stronghold. This is a constituency which is purely urban. She was eyeing that. It also seems that Akhilesh Yadav was not inclined to give her that seat, or at this point any seat, because he is on record as having said that he does not want any other family member contesting. So she's gone away. Whether she gets that seat or not, we don't know. But most important thing is they are now showing that there is a division in Mulayam Singh Yadav's family. Now, Mulayam Singh Yadav, we have to understand the family and we have to understand the dynasty. Now, Mulayam Singh Yadav, among the new socialist leaders that emerged in the Hindi heartland, or former socialist leaders who owe their political pedigree to the earlier socialist movement. That is Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Yadav, Nitish Kumar and Ramvilas Paswan. Among all four of these, Mulayam Singh Yadav is the oldest. Mulayam Singh Yadav was born in 1939. Lalu was born almost 10 years later in 1948. Nitish, a couple of years later, 1951. And Paswan, a couple of years younger than Lalu, in 1946. He unfortunately is no more now. Three of the four founded political dynasties. Nitish did not found a political dynasty, although he has a son, but his son has completely, scrupulously stayed out of it. The father has also kept the son out. The other three, however, have dynasties, built dynasties. Mulayam's was for a long time the most successful, also because it was ruling in several spells the most important state in the country. Also, for at least 10 years, it enabled a UPA government to stay in power by helping the Congress party to keep the BJP out. Before that also, United Front was kept in power. All third front governments have been kept in power with Mulayam Singh Yadav's help. So he's been a key political figure, key power figure, much more than the other socialists from his times. The other common thing among these four socialists is that all four of them were jailed by Mrs. Gandhi during the emergency for 19 months. Then for some time they were together, then they went their different ways. In fact, if you start tracking this becomes very confusing, because they've been with Lok Dal, Janata Dal, S, Krantikari Morcha, Samajwadi Party. That is like Mulayam Singh Yadav's political itinerary so far. But all others have also gone their own ways, and all others have also built their own parties, sometimes entirely new parties, and sometimes by taking away the existing parties, as say Nitish Kumar has done. Mulayam Singh Yadav is also the largest and the most spread out dynasty. In his heyday, when Samajwadi Party was in power, a lot of his family members are MPs, MLAs, ministers in the state, president of this district council, that district council, as they are called, Jala Parishads, etc., in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in the area where they come from, Manpuri, Safai. Safai is the home constituency. Safai is to the Mulayam Singh Yadav family what Badal village is to the Badal family in Punjab, for simplicity. Now, Mulayam Singh Yadav married twice. So, Malti Devi was his first wife. So, Akhilesh Yadav has been the heir apparent for a long time. He's been the former chief minister. He's also now the chief ministerial candidate for the party in the forthcoming elections. Now, Mulayam Singh had for quite some time, while his wife was ailing, while Malti Devi was ailing for a long time, after the childbirth, Mulayam Singh Yadav had a relationship to which he never admitted. In the course of time, however, he admitted it, and he was persuaded, it seems, by his friend Amar Singh to do so. And that is how the identity of Sadhana Gupta Yadav as Mrs. Mulayam Singh Yadav became public. Sadhana Gupta Yadav, from her, Mulayam Singh Yadav has Pratik, that is the other son. So Pratik and Akhilesh are brothers from two different mothers. Akhilesh's wife is Dimple, who's been in politics, who's been a member of parliament. She lost the last time in 2019 in the second Modi wave. Pratik's wife is Aparna, who has now joined the BJP. So that is the immediate family. But the spread of the Mulayam Singh Yadav family goes beyond his children, beyond his sons. So there are his brothers. His brother Abhay Ram's son Dharmendra. Dharmendra was MP from Badaयूं. In fact, he's a 3-term MP. He was an MP from Badaयूं. He lost the last time in Badaयूं to, hold your breath, Sanghamitra Maurya. Now, Sanghamitra Maurya is the daughter of Swami Prasad Maurya, who just left the BJP to join Samajwadi Party. Sanghamitra Maurya, meanwhile, continues as the BJP MP from Badayun. So that is the other trait about these political dynasties, that it is not at all atypical of them to have different feet in different parties. So just as the Maurya family now has one in the BJP, daughter in the BJP, father in the SP, similarly now you could say that Mulayam Singh Yadav's family also has one representative, that is the other daughter-in-law besides Dimple Yadav, in the BJP. In fact, if anything, responding to this, Akhilesh Yadav said, oh, so we can now hope that our Vichardhara, our ideology will be followed by the BJP as well. Abhay Ram, Mulayam's brother, had son Dharmendra, who I told you about. Then his other brother is Shivpal Singh. Shivpal Singh Yadav, who rebelled earlier, or you can say who Akhilesh Yadav rebelled against. So I'll take you back to 2016. And that is when the first signs of big trouble emerged within this dynasty. In 2016, Mulayam Singh Yadav fired both Ram Gopal Yadav, his cousin, who was then was the convener of the Samajwadi Party, and Akhilesh Yadav, who was the chief minister. That was just months before the 2017 elections in Uttar Pradesh. It was quite a drama. So he fired both of them, expelled both of them from his party, and in fact also barred his son Akhilesh Yadav from being in the party for 6 years. Within 24 hours, he revoked his decision because he might have figured, one, that it was unsustainable that the party was with Akhilesh, and second, that being an old politician, he would have known that much as it was hurtful for his ego, it wasn't going to work well for his politics. So he withdrew it. But Akhilesh Yadav was not about to forgive. So Akhilesh Yadav, who had already twice dismissed or fired Shivpal Yadav as a minister in his cabinet because he wouldn't listen to him. His way then was, look, I am the uncle, right? So I am the boss. Who the hell are you? So he had fired him twice. Akhilesh wasn't giving up now. He, in fact, on 1st of January 2017, he held a party convention and he stripped his father, Mulayam Singh Yadav, of the presidency, and he made him chief patron of the Samajwadi Party. Now, Mulayam Singh Yadav said this is wrong, this is illegal. He went to Election Commission and said that his cousin Ram Gopal Yadav did not have the power to convene this convention, but Election Commission ruled in Akhilesh's favor. So there is that very messy history behind this. So as you see, the rest of the Yadav dynasty, his cousin Ram Gopal Yadav is now National General Secretary of Samajwadi Party. Ratan Singh, his deceased brother, who actually had fought in the 1965 war. He was a soldier. His son, Tej Pratap Singh Yadav, is married to Lalu Yadav's daughter, Raj Lakshmi. And don't get confused, sometimes the same names feature on both sides, because one of Lalu's sons also is Tej Pratap Singh, and he has rebelled within his own family against the supremacy of the brother Tejasvi. Now, dynasties, families, political families are common to all democracies now. Because in the most powerful democracy, that's America, also we've seen the Bushes, we've seen the Clintons, and we've seen many others. And who knows what happens with the Trumps tomorrow. So political dynasties are a common enough phenomenon in democracies. You see a dynasty ruling also in Canada, for example. In India, we've had a lot of them, also because we know India better than we might know Canada or America or Britain. The other common thing about dynasties is that almost every political dynasty has internal trouble. Either it comes from sibling rivalry or it comes from parental preferences. I prefer this child, not that child. It happens between cousins, between brothers, sisters, children-in-law, children, grandchildren. And I will give you many examples. So let me just quickly run through a score sheet of 20 political dynasties in India. Now, this is by no means comprehensive. If I list 20, to me these 20 are the most prominent, and I have to stop somewhere. Otherwise, we can go to 100. In fact, if you look at the list of MPs today in Lok Sabha, more than 25% can be easily identified as members or descendants of political dynasties. So if we don't go into that much detail, look at these 20 prominent dynasties. First of all, the Gandhi family, right? We know exactly what happened there. Gandhi family split. Sanjay Gandhi's side of the family went away very early on. That is Menka Gandhi and Varun Gandhi. So that family has had a split. You might say it comes out of sibling rivalry. You might say it comes out of a belief that no, Sanjay Gandhi should have been the real heir apparent, and if he's not there, then his family should move in his place, that is his wife, and finally his son, and not the other brother, and subsequently his family, because the other brother was not the mother's first choice in politics. Second example is Lalu Yadav. Lalu Yadav, you see now, Lalu Yadav has ruled the state. He's also ruled the state through his wife, Rabri Devi. Tejasvi came within a hair's breadth or within a breath of ruling the state, and who knows tomorrow what will happen. Nisa, his sister, is an MP, but there is some tension, but it's quite subterranean. You don't see it very much. But Tej Pratap, the other brother, is openly a rebel. So that's one more political dynasty which has a rebellion or a breakup within. Nitish Kumar did not found a political dynasty, so he's not in our list of 20. DMK has regular issues. We saw earlier Alagiri and Stalin falling out, brothers, Alagiri going the other way, and there were some issues and there was some supposed sense of rivalry between Kanimori and Stalin. That seems to be settled right now because Stalin is the leader, but Alagiri continues to be a rebel. He's a brother. YSRCP is a relatively new dynasty because this came into being a little while after the tragic and sudden death of YS Rajshekhar Reddy in a helicopter crash. Now, for some time, his son dragged on with the Congress party, then left, and then built a dynasty. So much more than the father building a dynasty, it's his son who carried the dynasty forward. There also you now see some kind of a split between the son, who has total sway in Andhra Pradesh right now, and his sister Sharmila, who's setting up her own politics in Telangana at the moment, although we don't know that system very closely until now. Then Telugu Desam Party, again in the same state, in fact in the same state as it used to be the combined state earlier. NTR passed away. He left his new wife, who thought she was going to inherit the party. There was a fight for succession between her and NTR's son-in-law, Chandrababu Naidu, and obviously Chandrababu Naidu it is who won. So once again, there was a fight in that dynasty. Going ahead, we've seen and we are counting three of them as one. Otherwise, our list becomes too long. Bansilal, Devilal, Bhajanlal, Bilal, Dilal, Bilal, as they were called. Each one founded a dynasty, and each one's successors have now gone different ways. So Bansilal, the two sons went their different ways. Bhajanlal, sons went their different ways. Devilal, sons went their different ways, and grandsons have also gone their different ways. So one grandson's family now through the great grandson Dushyant Chautala is part of the Haryana government. The other grandson side of the family right now is a little bit out in the cold, particularly because the second generation, that is O.P. Chautala, and his other son, that is Devilal's grandson, spent time in jail, and quite a bit of time in jail. Then Abdullah's in Kashmir. We may not remember this, but looks like they've been together. But in the 80s, it was Gul Muhammad Shah, Gul Shah as he was called, Farooq Abdullah's brother-in-law, who had taken away the government, and he had become chief minister, if briefly, with the help of the government in Delhi, with the help of the Congress government in Delhi at that point. Badal government in Punjab. I'm almost now going down the map of India state by state. Badal family was together, so there was the father, there was the son, there was a daughter-in-law, there was also the brother-in-law, Vikramajitya, and some other family members. But most importantly, there was the cousin, Manpreet Badal. And those two, Manpreet Badal and Sukhbir Badal, were brought up by the family almost as if they were direct siblings. Just as Prakash Singh Badal and his brother were absolutely close together. In the course of time, what happened? Again, a split took place. Manpreet Badal went away. He is now, as we know, with the Congress party and finance minister of Punjab. Then come to Thackeray's. The same story. Balasaheb Thackeray brought up both sons, Uddhav and Raj Thackeray, together. But Raj Thackeray went away, and I remember in a Walk the Talk interview with me when he turned 75, Bala Sahab said, "ये राज क्या था? ये भी तो मेरा बच्चा था, मेरी गोदी में पेशाब करता था." Right? But ultimately, when it comes to political power, it is the direct stream of the family who's preferred by the patriarch or the matriarch, say Indira Gandhi in that case, the founder of the dynasty. And that's what happened in this case as well. So Raj Thackeray is now sort of out in the cold. He makes headlines every now, once in a while, but less and less now. Scindias, that's a clear and present story. We saw that the mother, Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia, she founded the dynasty, but her son did not stay with her in her politics. She was one of the founders of the BJP, Jan Sangh politics in India, but the son went the way of the Congress party, that is Madhavrao Scindia. Then Madhavrao Scindia's son carried on into the Congress party. Now he's come to the BJP. But it's also, you might say that, oh, now the family or the dynasty has come together because he and both his aunts, that is Vasundhara Raje and Yashodhara Raje, are also in the BJP. But you know, this is not as simple as that. Because if anything, Vasundhara Raje in Rajasthan at this point is half a dissident within the BJP. Pawar family in Maharashtra again, just as we've seen the Thackeray's, Pawar family, once again there's a nephew there. That is Ajit Pawar, who's been straining at the leash all this while. At one point, he had gone away, joined hands with the BJP. That did not work out. Subha ka bula, sham ko ghar aa gaya, a return of the prodigal took place. But Supriya Sule, the daughter, is the presumptive heir to Sharad Pawar. But the nephew, Ajit Pawar, is also watching for his chances, and we don't know what will happen. That relationship is not a perfect relationship. So once again, a dynasty which shows the same pattern, follows the same pattern. Karnataka, Devagowda's children, Revanna and Kumaraswamy, you always see the tension. Even if there is no split, Revanna and Kumaraswamy, you can always pick the tension. Just like that, touch it with your own hands. Odisha, no problem. West Bengal at this point, no problem, because those, while the ruler of Odisha right now, Naveen Patnaik, himself comes from a famous dynasty. He is single. He has not founded any dynasty. Even his siblings have not really been into politics. So that place is calm, although that is linked to a dynasty. Pranab Mukherjee, yet again, the son has gone to Trinamool Congress and the daughter has been with the Congress party. And finally, to complete the tally of 20, the Mulayam Singh Yadav family that we spoke about in detail early on. Now, at the end of this, the net truth at the end of this is a tough one. It can also be cruel if you are caught on the wrong side of this. That is, when a dynasty breaks, then the vote bank, which is the main strength of the dynasty, that stays back with the mainstream of the family. So if Manpreet Badal goes away from Akali Dal, Manpreet Badal cannot take the Badal family's vote away. If Raj Thackeray goes away from Shiv Sena, he cannot take away Shiv Sena's vote bank. And that applies everywhere. You can see it with Tej Pratap Yadav. We saw it with Shivpal Singh Yadav in the case of SP. And similarly, the most prominent example, once again, the Gandhi family. We've seen that the party and the party's vote bank has remained with what is seen popularly as the Gandhi family. It's very difficult for a rebel in a family. In fact, it's almost impossible for a rebel in the family to take away the vote bank unless the rebel takes away the party, as Mrs. Gandhi had done, Indira Gandhi had done in 1969. But remember, she was not rebelling against the dynasty. She was just taking the party with the dynasty and turning it into a dynastic party.